Hello, good morning. I'm sorry for this little delay. A quarter is a classic in the university. Welcome to the people that are attending here in Milan. Very happy to see you, and welcome to the person that are online. A great number of attendants. My name is Luisa Pedrazzini. I am the responsible of the course here at Politecnico EU Policy for Sustainability and the City in the International Master in Urban Planning and Policy Design at Politecnico di Milano. This is a particular event in the field of the event, the seminar of ESPON. This is a training event dedicated to the urban dimension of cohesion policy, and we're going to present the results of the ESPON project Uridico. This is very important for us, starting from my task here in class, because this is exactly one of the main issues that I presented during the course that are not only devoted to the theoretical aspect of EU policies, in particular addressed to urban area, but this is also an occasion to understand and to know how works this instruments, this program in operative terms. The moderator of the day is a co-moderator. Is me and Piera Petruzzi from ESPON, sorry. And as I already told, the seminar intend to integrate the theoretical aspect with practice and policy implementation. And very happy also for the wide audience present. Just one thing I would highlight is that this is not a normal scientific study, is a targeted analysis. That is one of the products available in the program ESPON, targeted analysis under the thematic action plan perspective for all people and places. And this is important because it is asked from the bottom, asked from the territories. This means that a number of cities, in this case, and public administration asked to ESPON to develop this particular analysis. How EU policy addressed to the city impact in urban policy and in urban environment. In this Urdico, I have to mention briefly, because I think that Piera will be deep on this. Is led the project is led by the Metropolitan Research Institute of Budapest in a consortium with Politecnico di Torino and the University of Valencia. And it is based on the request from the territory, as I already told, in particular from a number of European cities: Budapest, Florence, Ghent, Prague, Rotterdam, Strasbourg, Valencia, and Warsaw. And we have here today the presentation by some scholars and professors involved in the analysis that are partly attending here in Milan, and it will be the first two presentations, and then partly from remote. I don't know, Piera, if you want to deep and give some more information. I don't want to overlap my presentation to your, even we are a little bit late. And then please, Piera, I give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Luisa, and buongiorno, good morning, everyone. My name is Piera Petruzzi. I work at the ESPON EGTC, and it's really a great pleasure to welcome you to this learning event, which is focusing on the role of territorial research in supporting the urban dimension of cohesion policy. And first of all, I would like to thank Luisa Pedrazzini, Politecnico di Milano, and all the colleagues there for the invitation to host this learning event and for the excellent cooperation. I'm particularly happy to see many students participating today because I think that events like this help create a bridge between academic learning and European policy making. About ESPON, briefly, ESPON is an EU program funded by the EU and the member and partner states. We are one of the Interreg programs, and we are in service for over 20 years. We provide territorial analysis, data, and policy advice to 27 member states and 4 partner states. We help public authorities to benchmark their country, region, cities, identify new challenges and potentials, and also shape successful policies for the future. At ESPON, we really believe that students and young researchers are essential actors for the future of territorial development in Europe. And through ESPON, you students can access datasets, maps, territorial indicators, comparative analysis, and case studies that can support your thesis, research projects, and professional development. And ESPON has also demonstrated how research can have a concrete policy impact, and you will have a great example today. Many of our analyses contribute directly to discussions at all levels, European, national, regional, and local level as well. Increasingly, we observe that EU strategies and also urban policies are built on territorial evidence and recommendation emerging from a project such as ESPON Urdico, which will be presented today. I'm not sure if all the students there are familiar with cohesion policy. Maybe they are, so I will not say anything about that, also because you will learn a lot from experts today. What I want to say in addition is that ESPON Urdico is a targeted analysis, as Luisa said. It started with a group of stakeholders that expressed their policy needs to ESPON, and we have built together with them this targeted analysis. And Urdico is an excellent example on how ESPON works through targeted analysis, developed in response to concrete policy needs on the ground. The project involved a strong partnership of cities and organizations led by Budapest as lead stakeholders, and also with the involvement of all the cities that Luisa has mentioned, but also observers such as ANCI, the European Urban Initiative, the European Commission Joint Research Center, and several national city associations. The research team was led by the Metropolitan Research Institute in Budapest, together with university and experts from Italy, for instance, Politecnico di Torino, but also Spain, Belgium, Poland, University of Warsaw, France, and Czech Republic. Today, this event is designed to showcase the value of ESPON research and deepen understanding of how territorial evidence can support sustainable urban development strategies within EU cohesion policies. And this day will combine presentation, policy perspectives, and also opportunity for discussion and exchange. We are very fortunate today because we have 4 distinguished speakers who will guide us through these discussions from different perspectives. First, we are really honored to have to welcome Ivan Tosic, that is in the room in Milano, in Politecnico di Milano. Ivan is a sociologist and principal of the Metropolitan Research Institute in Budapest. He is specialized in urban development, housing, and EU regional policies. And among others, is also former program expert for Urbact. We are also pleased to welcome Professor Erblin Berisha from Politecnico di Torino, whose work focuses on spatial planning, territorial governance, and regional development with extensive experience in ESPON and European cooperation projects. Our discussion will then further benefit from the participation of Professor Miroslav Grochowski from the University of Warsaw, which is an expert in spatial planning, metropolitan governance, and intermunicipal cooperation, who has contributed as well to several EU and ESPON projects, including Urdico. Finally, we are delighted to welcome Benedette Javor, which is the head of the representation of Budapest to the EU in Brussels, former member of the European Parliament, and also expert on sustainable urban and environmental policies. I encourage all the students and everybody following us online, participating not only to listen, but also to engage actively and ask questions and reflect on how territorial research can connect to your own academic and professional path. I really think that Europe needs professionals capable of understanding territories in all their complexities and translating evidence into action. Finally, please go to slido.com and type ESPON. You will also see this in a slide. Here you are. And use Slido to ask questions during the session, as you can see in this slide shared by my colleague. Thank you again to Luisa Pedrazzini, to all speakers and partners, and all participants for making this event possible. I wish you all an inspiring and productive discussion. And back to you, Luisa.
Thank you, Piera. We are absolutely in time, and I can give the floor to Ivan Tosic for the first presentation.
So, hello everybody. I am Ivan Tosic from Budapest. The weather is the same in Budapest than here.
Yeah.
Already extreme hot. I cannot imagine what will happen in the summer. But now we are talking about cohesion policy, and we were honored to lead this project, which was only for 1 year. So it was not a long project, 3 or 4 years than the usual EU projects. It was for 1 year. Erblin will talk about the project itself. I will give you an introduction to cohesion policy, because you can only understand the project if you understand cohesion policy. So I will talk briefly about core and peripheries in Europe, the institutional structure of cohesion policy, the gradual development of the urban dimension. I will give an example of ITI, which shows what European Union can what European policy can achieve in a concrete case. Then I will just show the conceptual framework for Urdico, and then I will talk about the present conditions, because we are in Europe before a quite difficult task to launch the next 7 years budget, and in that cohesion policy, and for this Urdico has a quite important task. Now, this is a map of Europe which shows that Europe is not at all on the same level. It consists of northwestern Europe, which is very rich. It consists of the southern European periphery, and then it consists from the eastern European periphery. And I will not go into the details now, and you will get the presentation, but you will see that there are huge differences in the development of these 3 parts of Europe. We can say that the northwestern Europe is twice as rich if we consider GDP per capita as a good indicator, many people doubt it, but let's assume that it shows something. So Northwestern Europe is twice as rich as the eastern periphery, and the southern periphery is somewhere in the middle. And then you have many other indicators which show this differentiation. So this is just a warning that EU needs a kind of cohesion policy because the parts are very, very different. And then once I met this map and I couldn't believe my eyes, if we add together the GDP of the green countries, which include from Greece up to the Baltic, all the eastern countries except for Poland, their joint GDP is equal of the GDP of the Netherlands and Belgium. So this is really a shocking example showing how different the different parts of Europe are. So this is the architecture of European policies. Again, we cannot go into the details, but there are cohesion policies in the upper left, common agricultural policies on the right side, and then the other priorities are down. So it was a general rule that agriculture takes approximately 1/3 of European budget, cohesion policy another third, and then the rest is coming. Within cohesion policy, you have different funds. The Regional Development Fund, the Social Fund, the Cohesion Fund, these are the three most important funds. And the Regional Development Fund is usually infrastructure development, the Social Fund is soft projects, and the Cohesion Fund is a special fund for those countries where the GDP per capita on country level is lower than EU average. Only those countries get cohesion fund resources. Now, there's a quite difficult, complex rule how cohesion policy money is allocated between territorial units. And what is very interesting that the European money is allocated on regional basis, not on the country basis. So the NUTS2 regions get money from the EU based on a very complex measure how to calculate this. I cannot go into the details because then we would run out of time. I just tell you that if you are interested in that, you have a lot of literature about it. They know it. Very good, very good. Then I can just go on. Yes, this is a picture which shows that how much the different countries get if we add together the regions of the countries from cohesion policy, and you can see that Poland gets far the largest amount of money because Poland is relatively poor and is a large country, so this is understandable. And then, for example, Hungary gets equal amount to France, and this can be explained that Hungary is 1/6 of the size of France, but Hungary is much poorer than France. So if you add this together, then you can understand the amount of money. 7 years programming periods. And what is very important for us that it works with shared management, which means that Europe gives the framework and then countries are creating the program, how the money should be allocated. So again, the regions of the country get the eligibility. The amount of this money is added together on country level, and then the country decides about the operational programs, what should be supported in the given country. Now, within this complex system, the urban dimension of EU cohesion policy developed, and I would say that up till 2014, they were experiments like the urban program, but the real urban dimension started in 2014. So 2014-20 and 21-27 had already a real urban dimension, which means practically, partly, that 5% of ERDF had to be given to cities. And this 5%, this we call earmarking, this was increased to 8% between 21 and 27. So this is the description of this policy: place-based developments, multi-level governance models, and an interesting tool was introduced, the integrated territorial development, which enabled cities to get money together from the different funds. Because with a normal person's brain, you cannot understand why ERDF and ESF and cohesion funds are different. They were developed differently during the history of the European Union, and they can never merge together because they have an institutional history. But let's see one concrete example which shows what you can achieve with this thing. I take the case of the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic introduced in 2014 on the national level the integrated territorial investment, this possibility. This was a national decision, and for example, Hungary did not introduce it. So it was really a national decision. Czech Republic and Poland had it, Hungary not. In this ITI structure, they joined together ERDF, ESF, and Cohesion Fund operational programs, and they said that there are 8 territories, urban territories, which should get money out of that. Not on the city level, but on the metropolitan area level. We all know that the city does not end at the administrative boundary. People are moving in and out. So they started to say that we have to give money to Prague and surrounding, Brno and surrounding. Now let's take the example of Brno. There was a calculation, what is the agglomerational area of Brno, because this was not really known earlier. So finally, they, based on the data, they agreed what is the urban area of Brno, and it consists 167 municipalities. Brno is a city of 400,000, but the Brno agglomerational area is 800,000. And then it was an integrated strategy of Brno metropolitan area development signed. And you can see on the right-hand side, the mayor of Brno and the mayors of 4 other core cities, which represented the 167 small municipalities. They signed an integrated strategy with a vision about the whole area, which includes 167 municipalities. At that point, I became already very envious because I have never seen such a picture in Hungary. In Hungary, this ITI is not allowed, and cooperation between the large city and the surrounding municipalities is not existing, unfortunately. Then implementation started, money was given from different operational programs, and finally, Brno metropolitan area got 240 million euros between 2014-2020. They decided for 123 projects. There was a very complex procedure how to select projects because there was an integrated strategy. Then the settlements and other actors could bid with project ideas, and then a steering committee which included all the actors of the metropolitan area, including the mayors. They decided which projects fit better the strategic framework and which not. And then 124 projects were finally selected. You can see a few examples: 885 park and ride facilities, parking spaces, 3 transfer terminals, multimodal transfer centers, bicycle paths, social flats, new tram and trolleybus lines, and specialized classrooms for primary and secondary schools. And here are some pictures. Now, these projects would have never existed if these 168 settlements, the small ones, and Brno wouldn't have set up an integrated strategy, selecting the projects and working together. So this is a very nice example of what Europe brings if the idea is good on the top, if the national level accepts the idea, and then the local level also makes it. Now, the Urdico research started from that point, that we think that this is a good method, but how does it work in reality? And this is for example, I think the most important slide from our research. It comes a bit later on for those who follow online. The European Union sets the framework, but then it is the national and the regional level which is a gatekeeper. And the national and regional level, they either really accept the idea of multi-level governance partnership, and then they deliver the policies to the local level. And finally, the projects at the very bottom, they are good because they really are according to the European vision, and the national level helps them, and on the local level, integrated projects are created. But this is not the case everywhere. And this is why we started Urdico Research, and we tried to find out to what extent is really integrated this system in 8 different countries, 8 selected cities. How does it work? So we did not only consider integrated territorial investment, but also other European programs. We went on the local level, we asked for data, we talked to people on the local level, on national level, and we tried to find out how this very good idea, I think it's really extremely good idea, but how does it work in 8 different constellations? And this is what Erbil will talk about. Now, the last part of my presentation is about the 2028-2034 multi-annual financial framework, which is discussed now, because the decision has to be taken next year the latest, and then again 7 years period will start. And the question, what will happen with cohesion policy? And you can see the cohesion, the line of cohesion policy, which is a gray line, is really decreasing. It was only 19% in 21-27. Earlier it was 1/3. Agricultural policy is also dramatically decreasing. It was almost half of the total budget earlier, and now it is roughly the same than cohesion policy. So other ideas are taking over, and these other ideas are mainly competitiveness, economic development, which is taking over. So what will happen? The Commission wants to make a radical change, and they say we should forget about what we did so far. We should make a new system which is better streamlined for the difficult challenges what we face. It should be simpler and easier to understand, and it should be given to the national level to decide. They refer to the Draghi report, to the Letta report. They show how much Europe is losing in competitiveness compared to the United States, compared to China. So they say that it should be competitiveness which is the most important. In brackets, I think that these reports misunderstand what Europe is about. I finished my bracket, and then they say that if we have to answer these challenges, then we have to give much more role to competitiveness, security, climate, etc. On the other hand, we have less money, or we have not more money, because the European countries, especially the rich countries, they are unwilling to give more money into the European budget. So what are the basic proposals which are on the table now in Brussels, in the Parliament, in the European Council, to give much more money to competitiveness, to cut cohesion fund and cut the agricultural fund, and even merge them into a single heading. This would mean that the national government would decide how much money they give for cohesion and how much money they give for agriculture. There should be only one plan on national level, the National and Regional Partnership Plan, and this should decide about everything. And then Europe said that this is good because we will be more competitive, and the national level knows how to increase competitiveness in the different countries. So we are now in the negotiation phase. The Council has to make a decision next year. There are discussions that probably before the French election, but who knows? There was a very important moment this year, the Hungarian elections. Now we succeeded. Now it comes the next difficult issue, the French elections. But it is probably doubtful that an agreement can be reached before the French elections. So this is a summary what the Commission proposals are for the next multi-annual financial framework. The independence of cohesion policy is endangered. It is put on the national level whether they continue it and in what way. Some ideas are there regarding cities, but nothing is compulsory. Partnership and multi-level governments is mentioned in the text on the level of words, but there are no safeguards. They are not compulsory guidelines given. So we think, many of us think, that the achievements what we achieved in the last 12 years or since 2014, the growing importance of decentralized EU cohesion policy, the growing influence of cities, this can be lost if this new multi-annual financial framework is accepted in that form. So Urdico is now used in the discussions, and I also know from Javor Benedek, who will talk later online, that Eurocities and many other actors use the Urdico research results to argue that we should not pour the baby out with the bathing water. We should continue the successful elements of cohesion policy. We should give enough role to cities because they proved to be successful in the last years. So these are some suggestions for the next multi-annual financial framework. There should be a direct and formalized role for cities. A territorial urban chapter is needed, and also urban earmarking, this 5%, 8%, you remember, this is important because if it does not exist, many member states will simply neglect it. And a last word, the beauty of cohesion policy is really that it can enhance the power of the local level. And many countries understand it. Italy is one of the good examples, as Erwin will show, because Italy had the metropolitan areas program, the NOP Metro program. Italy gave a lot of money from the recovery fund to the 14 metropolitan areas. But there are other countries which are doing totally differently. Maybe you will understand it from my second presentation in the afternoon, how differently this policy was working in Hungary, for example. So our statement is that the key elements of cohesion policy and the key elements of the urban dimension should be made compulsory in the EU framework and not let it on the national level, whether they do it or not. So this was my presentation. Some ideas what you can keep in mind. You will get the presentation and you already have it in your mind, I hope. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your exhaustive presentation on the framework. And I don't know if there are some questions in Slido or here in the room. What about the future of cohesion policy that is currently debated, and what will be the urban dimension of the policy in the future?
Yeah, I mean, these are the basic questions, and I think you will get the most direct answer from Benedek Javor, who will be the speaker after Erwin, because he sits in Brussels and he knows exactly what is going on. But in fact,
he's in the heart of the discussion.
He's in the heart of discussions. But I have got a letter, for example, yesterday from Pietro Reviglio, who works with Eurocities, and Eurocities as a lobby organization of the large European cities. They are really participating in the debate. The debate is going on now in the European Parliament. You know that the Commission suggested something, the Parliament gives the opinion, and then finally the Council, the heads of the states have to make the final decision. But they have to take into account what the Parliament suggests. And Pietro told me, or wrote a letter, that the Parliament will accept in the official statement of the Parliament many things what we suggested from Urdico. Not because of Urdico, but Urdico helped a bit give arguments for suggestions. So the future of this cohesion policy and the urban dimension will be decided officially next year, but this year in the autumn there will already be very important moments when the heads of states start to discuss these issues, and then obviously there will be some prime ministers who say that we want to make decision, we want to decide how much money we give to a peasant and how much to an urban citizen. Others will say that
Sorry,
it was good how it was.
Sorry, we can't hear you, Ivan. You should come closer to the laptop.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So again, there will be big discussions already in the autumn about that, and then next year the final decision will be taken. And again, Javor Benedek will tell you more about the details of this discussion. It is very difficult because the rural areas, they already achieved an earmarking. They already have, I think, 13% of the whole money goes to rural areas. And they fight very much against that urban areas should also get an earmarking. So there are so many different interests and overlapping and conflicting interests that it is very hard to achieve an urban earmarking, but I hope that this will succeed.
Also another question, how Urdico results are helping cities and EU to design a better policy?
Yes, I think that in fact, I will tell you in the Budapest presentation that we have shown the results to the Budapest people. We even have shown the results to the ministry in Hungary, and we have shown how differently the cities are working in the other 7 countries. And this tries to make some interest. It makes some interest in Budapest leaders to improve their policies. And I would say the similar in Prague, in Prague, in Warsaw, in Ghent, in Valencia, in Firenze. They understand the examples of other cities, and they understand that other cities made something which we did not. So this is one obvious achievement. And then very important are the national policymakers, because maybe cities want to do something and they are eager to follow the example. For example, for us, the Città Metropolitana in Italy, the NOP Metro are very nice examples. But if we want to follow it in Hungary, then we have to convince our national governments that they should introduce something similar. It is in their hands. So we have to argue with the national level, and then the national representatives will make in Brussels the final decision about the whole architecture. So I think Urdico is a kind of virus from below. We can get people a good virus, yeah, very good. Not a bad virus, but a virus from below to try to convince the national level and then try to convince the European Commission. The Commission should be convinced about not to kill this policy, because at the moment they want to kill the compulsory architecture of this policy. So we hope.
In fact, I think that this question should be done to the Commission, because ESPO is an interreg program. It's under the umbrella of the territorial cooperation, and this is a policy of the EU. This is very important for you to take the results of this kind of analysis and research. Okay, thank you for that.
We can't hear you.
Do you hear me now? Do you?
Yes, we can only hear you if you are closer to the laptop.
Okay, sorry. No, it's just a brief comments because I mentioned that ESPON is a interreg program, European territorial cooperation, and the question should be done to the Commission. Commission should take in account strongly all the results that comes from analysis under the umbrella of the program of territorial cooperation. Another question, can you tell me more about the Eurico methodology? Probably later. I want to wait just a few moments because now is arriving the second speaker. Erbling.
So, thank you, Luisa. Thank you, Ivan, for this very detailed introduction about cohesion policy, and also thank you, students, for attending this event, and also thanks to people that are online. So, what about the results of Urdico? As you learned from the introduction of Piera, Luisa, and Ivan, this project has been has targeted the role of cities in policy. As you noticed, cohesion policy is quite complex, but we will see how we can understand the role of cities within this framework. So, but before that, I would like to do like a step back and discuss with you why we compare things. So which are the reasons back to the comparisons, why we do comparative analysis. And there are, if you look to institutional studies, there are many reasons, but mainly three that we would like to discuss with you. Is that the first reason is that we would like to understand whether and how a specific policy, no matter policy that you have in mind, is implemented across different institutional contexts. You are coming from different countries. You know better than us the institutional organization of your countries, and if you want to know the difference, you have to compare them. Okay. Second reason is because you might want to identify the institutional reaction and adaptation mechanisms. So how a country, how a region is reacting to an external stimuli or an external something event. In this case for us, like the external stimuli is cohesion policy. Third one is about one of the reasons is to assess what can be improved by providing evidences, so data, information, or analysis on the outcomes of and effectiveness of a policy implementation. Okay, so those are the main three reasons, and I think that those three reasons have been somehow explored within the project. Methodologically, I'll explain you better later. But so the idea is that we take cohesion policy, as was explained by Ivan. We have this big black box. So the cities, the role of cities within the living cohesion policy. The idea is to use 8 case studies, so 8 stakeholder cities from the program, and to understand how cohesion policy has been used for urban transformation. So how the cities have been transformed, and we noticed some examples from Brno, but there are like dozens of examples in Europe, even 1,000. And so there we then had some guiding questions, research questions by ESPON. So in any target analysis, you have to answer to the questions of the stakeholders because they want to know something, and then we have to provide with answers as much as we can. Those are the 4 questions. So the main question was about comparing the different governance models. So we are introducing the topic of governance and how this has been like interpreted by each country. So looking if there is any model or typology. The second was about assessing how urban dimension of cohesion policy has contributed to institutional innovation, stronger administrative capacity, and better alignment at city level. So if there is any specific institutional innovation that cohesion policy has activated as a reactional mechanism to external impact or external influence. Then we have the third one is about providing evidences on how urban dimension of cohesion policy has or is influencing the long-term strategy of the territories, in particular of the 8 case studies. We know that cohesion policy has this unexpressed impact, which is like influencing the policy priorities of each city, because if you provide funds, and then you can also influence the content, of course. And then we have also the fourth one is about providing evidences on the interaction between the different categories of funds that the European Union has, and Ivan was also mentioning the main one. So all together, has allowed, I mean, the combination of these four guiding questions has allowed us to, yes, investigate more deeply and more like comprehensively the role of cities, at least the role of 8 cities that were in the project. Those are the 8 cities. So if you look, we have randomly Rotterdam, Florence, Budapest, Warsaw, Prague, Valencia, and Strasbourg, and Ghent, which is also a very interesting experience. If you look this geographical representation of the cities, there are some, you can see some very like immediate differences. Some of them are part of a specific functional area. That functional area is sometimes larger, sometimes smaller. In the case of Rotterdam, the ITI is targeting not like a large agglomeration of municipalities, but part of the city. So also the use of EU tools are very different, and if you map that, you can really recognize the heterogeneity of case studies that we have, that we had to analyze and also to represent. So which were if we look to the setting the case studies, so there is an extremely different case with sites and geographies across the cities, different case study scales. So as I said, Rotterdam has the ITI as part of a specific area of the city, while Warsaw and Strasbourg includes different municipalities, so agglomerations. Different spatial like evidences in terms of coverage. There are some cases like Warsaw, where the ITI was smaller in the 1420 and bigger in the 2021-27, and we also asked to the municipality why you changed the perimeter, the boundary of the ITI. It was because there was more interest from other municipalities that were originally excluded by the ITI to be part of, because they recognize the importance of the tool, for instance, and so on and so forth. So if you look to the methodology, of course, as any other target analysis, we had 2 different approaches, but combined approaches, of course. So the qualitative one, where we analyzed qualitatively the cases by semi-structured interviews, workshops, and desk analysis, and the quantitative approach instead was more on the data collection by investigating or using EU database, national database, sometimes local city database. Sometimes we had to collect data by ourselves, looking to picking the project by project and see how the funds, the actors involved, and the nature of the topics or the themes, and so on and so forth. So the combination of those 2 integrated approaches has allowed us to provide with some results. So this part is mainly on the findings, results and findings. And if you remember, this is like a diagram that make a synthesis, offers you like a very clear picture or how or which kind of governance models we have recognized during this study. If you look to the way in which cohesion policy has been implemented, so addressed by each country, and Ivan was also mentioning some with some examples, there was a very heterogeneous representation. We can start with the Budapest case, which was the easiest from our perspective, because it was immediately clear that the use of cohesion policy by the state, so by Hungary, from the first programming period that we analyzed, so the 2014 and 2020, and the 21-27. So from the first period, if you look, is this in the yellow, we noticed a very a progressive centralization. So there was a shift between a centralized towards even a more centralized one. I can make an example, but even can also say something like if you look to the implementation of cohesion policy in Hungary in the 2013 to 2000 and from 2007 to 2013, there were 7 regional operational programs. In the period 14-20, only 2. And in the last one, in the current one, only 1. So this progressive centralization is quite evident. So the rule of state of the central level is quite clear, while the local one, including the regional one, it is somehow left behind. It is not. It is somehow marginalized by political decisions. And this was like the extreme example, but there are also other examples, not similar but with similar tendencies, like in Valencia, where the ministries are taking some responsibilities from local level to the central level for the implementation of cohesion policy in Spain. There are also good or like different tendencies, like in Strasbourg, where there from decentralization there is a tendency of to even to decentralize more cohesion policy, but there are some contextual specificities, of course. If you look to the Italian case, and we will discuss later with the presentation of Florence case study, the Italy has no significant changes in the, if you look to the last 2 programming periods. So if you know how Italy is using cohesion policy, but is what we call multi-level governance perspective. So there is a co-responsibility between the central level, the regional level, and some municipalities. So the metropolitan area that was that even was mentioned at the beginning. Of course, from one period to another period, there are some changes, but not so dramatic changes or so relevant changes in the implementation. For instance, in this programming period, there was the introduction of a dedicated department, where before it was the agency. The department is under the Prime Minister office. They make it like shorter, and this it is not about centralization, but is about concentration. So it is another like lens of analysis. So if we move further, we can also we noticed that, of course, not all countries are using the same governance model, but they have also different tools to implement cohesion policy. There are some specific tools, like the inner area strategy in Italy, or similar strategies in Spain. Or there are the more like European oriented tools, the ITI mechanism, and the tool that was briefly explained by Ivan, so the integrated territorial investment mechanism. There are again some specificities. Italy is targeting, or has introduced in the previous programming period, and also in this one, they have even they made the metro PON, or NOP, it depends if you speak in Italian or in English, the national operational program. The metro is dedicated only, it was dedicated only for metropolitan cities in the previous programming period, but in this one, they have also included some south and island cities. You will see later more details on that. So there is also an heterogeneity of tools that that each country can use, can implement independently by European Union or together with the European Union. And this, of course, comes to the more to the critical part of the analysis, which was on the rule of cities. So we worked, or we explored the governance models at the national level in the country, the tools that each country can activate. But then what about cities? If you look more in deep, more closely to the cities, so to our to our target territories, we notice that there is like the picture of it is even more heterogeneous compared to the national one. So, for instance, if you look at if you use this 5-lens interpretative lens of the role of cities, so from information to supporting, we notice that there are like cities like the Budapest and Valencia that they used to be consulted by the actors involved in this more or less governance model. So they are only consulted, which means they do not have an effective rule, no power, no direct power or delegated power. And this is quite important. In Belgium, the case of Ghent is quite unique because, and it is unique the Belgium way of using cohesion policy, because the cohesion policy is managed at the subnational level, like Flanders for Ghent, for instance, while the Belgium country has no specific authority, let's say, because it was an idea to delegate to the subnational level. Well, so in Ghent, they are part of, they have some kind of responsibilities for the implementation of RDF, and they are co-steering an ITI. While, I mean, if we move to the more interesting cases, I mean, more like active cases, we see in Czech Republic, France, Italy, and Poland, there is a more direct rule of cities, whether using ITI or using national specific programs like the metro one in Italy, while in Czech Republic, France, and Poland, they use ITI as a tool for making the city, for allowing cities to become an active actor in cohesion policy. While the unique case in our study was Rotterdam, because Rotterdam is a managing authority. If you know the difference between managing authority, intermediate body, and so on and so forth, managing authority, it means that the actor, so the body, in this case the city of Rotterdam, has a very recognized, visible rule within cohesion policy, because they have the power to discuss with European Commission as like an peer, let's say, authority, because it has, I mean, by the political decision from the Netherlands to recognize its role to Rotterdam. So Rotterdam is a effective supporting actor in delivering cohesion policy. So it is like the ideal situation if a city want to become active in delivering cohesion policy. And part of what is included in this table has been already discussed by my presentation. So there is like this changing responsibility between 14-20 and 21-27 programming period, and I can just show like briefly some like interesting findings. So we recognize this progressive marginalization of Budapest from benefiting from cohesion policy. There is like in Florence, for instead, there is a continuity and institutional strengthening. So the idea is that if you have, I mean, as Florence had the opportunity to benefit from upon metro in both programming periods, they now are more familiar with the program. They know better how to implement the program, and also they are much more effective, because I mean there is a learning process and from one period to another period, and there is a progressive not really marginalization, but still important centralization in the Prague case, while in the fourth programming period they were managing authority as Rotterdam, while in this programming period they are not anymore. So it is quite an important change for Prague, but they still have an ITI to coordinate. So they are still part of the process, and partially active in the process. Again, this is like a summary of what we discussed so far. While here we can understand better which were also the administrative capacity and institutional innovation. As I mentioned at the beginning, the participation of cohesion policy by cities means that you have to adapt yourself in order to be ready for implementing something that comes from outside somehow, from European Union. So there was also the idea of moving, to create some specific offices dedicated to the implementation of EU projects, or the coordination across the various sectors, so that the adaptation process was quite clear in each case. In each country. Some of them they did since the beginning. They have much more experience. Like for instance, Prague. Other cities they would like to become, for instance, a managing authority, and so they are working to increase their capacities, internal capacities. But still, of course, there are also some kind of limitations. Each city suffers from specific institutional settings, but also from, for instance, capacities. We recognize, even though what they have are quite well established, let's say, in terms of capacity to implement EU projects, but they may lack some resources, human resources, because if you want to become to get a leading role, you have also to have the minimum conditions for having these rules. So you have to create a good team, or like multiple teams, for implementing cohesion policy. And there are some good innovations here and there, as I said, in terms of institutional innovation or in practices, or in processes. So you have to work on the capacities, but also on the how the process of cohesion policy implementation works in each city, and how to make it, and what can do the city to make this process more effective and efficient. And here we see some examples, so good examples, good practices, and the Metro Plus will be explained later once we explain the Florence case. But there are also some other cases that are very, very interesting. In Ghent, for instance, the activity that has been performed by the city together with privates in this public-private partnership has been very strategic for increasing the impact of cohesion policy in their city. So if you have private with you, if you have a good strategy, and if you create the right set up the right process, and then this can be also an added value in the implementation of cohesion policy. There are cases like one-stop shop and project offices in Rotterdam, I already said. So dedicated project offices for implementation of cohesion policy are quite crucial and relevant in each city. And there are some specific documents. So this is just the case of Valencia with the urban agenda and which is a very complicated acronym, but those policies are mainly used to target local authorities. The issue stays for integrated sustainable urban development strategies, and this, of course, if you have a strategy and you are much more ready to implement a cohesion policy, because the cohesion policy gives you the money, but you have to have the strategy to territorialize the European cohesion policy. Those are the list of different tools that cities have in their hands for the implementation of cohesion policy. And also here we look also we did a sort of institutional analysis of instruments and how this and the categories, the kind of instruments that each city has available. And if you see, it is very heterogeneous, from action plan to policy specific special planning documents, to strategies, to kind of coordination mechanism, and so on and so forth. So All of them, they give, I mean, the idea is that cohesion policy, the implementation of cohesion policy is quite complicated, but if you have a good strategy back, it might be a bit interesting. So what about funds? We were discussing about those findings were mainly on the qualitative as an outcome of the qualitative results, while what about funds? So the quantitative part, we noticed that the cities have benefited quite a lot from cohesion policy. If you remember, Ivan was saying that some cities like Prague, Budapest, and Warsaw has benefited also from a cohesion fund, while the rest are not eligible by regulation. But if you look at the data, there is a good tendency. I mean, there is a good representation of per capita EU per capita, and if you look also. If we compare the two programming periods, also there are some evidences. Of course, in the data about 21-27 are not the final one. So we use the data that we were able to collect till December 2025. So there are also two years more to implement, use those funds. So, but if you see some differences, it's because of that. And of course, but those funds can also be analyzed in terms of number of projects and in terms of shared or direct management funds. So these kind of categories that I suppose you know the difference. What is interesting from these slides is if you look at the case of Ghent, which always impressed me, is that Ghent is benefiting more or less with the same intensity. It's like around 50% between if we consider direct funds and shared management funds. It means that Ghent is performing very well in terms of attracting direct managed funds by European Union. It means that they do a lot of projects, EU projects like Urbact, Interreg, EWI, and so on, so for Horizon as well. So the cities can adapt their strategies according to their capacities, and also their institutional context and the possibilities that they have. We did also an overview of recovery and resilience plan. To be honest, this overview was a bit complicated because for the lack of data at local level, except Italy and somehow Spain, there were no database about recovery and resilience plan. And also the way in which this plan has been implemented across countries. I think it has to be further explored by ESPON or other actors, because from this preliminary overview, we recognize that there was a really marginalization process of local units. So cities, except, as I said, Florence and somehow Valencia. And also the funds are used are quite limited. Sorry, I'm just coming to the end. So which were the conclusions? So which are the conclusions of the project? We see that I will tell you all of them here. So there is this tendency of centralization and decentralization. And if you link this process with what was explained by Ivan for the 28-34 programming period, this tendency of centralization will be even more important, relevant, because what has in mind the European Commission goes quite in parallel with some of the centralization processes that we noticed so far. Evolving instruments. So the ITI is a key innovation. It was an innovation in 1420, but also the implementation in this programming period was quite relevant. And we suggest, of course, to keep this tool, and also for the upcoming programming period. Administrative capacities. So we recognize capacities generally in all cities, but then of course there are some differences across them. Institutional innovations. Cities are experimenting, and the cities are a place of experimentation, I think, and this is one of the main findings. So cities should be part of cohesion policy, because then they can experiment, and this is the place of experimentation. There was tensions and synergies with RRF, so the Recovery Resilience Fund. Synergies if you look to the Italy and Spain, tensions if you look at the other cases. Which are the implications of future cohesion policy? So what we can say, partly already said, cities must be trained not only as implementer, but as strategic partner in the programming period. Urban governance should be clearly included in the regulation and also in the discussion. Cohesion policy should be maintained at least, and then should be also like somehow recognized by the European Commission. And also this administrative capacity building is quite important. So we have to fund also this part, otherwise, so we have to provide funding for improving this part. What to keep in mind, I think we can skip that. What is relevant for you, maybe for your assignment, is that you can explore use the same methodology, but you can have some you can target smaller cases, because also there you can find some interesting examples of good cases, cities that you used to implement cohesion policy, like small or micro cities. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you for these two very well integrated presentation that have given us the framework of research and evidence based on your work. And here we have the space also for other three questions. Can you tell me more about the methodology? Yes, the former. Yes, we have closed this question. What about data collection? How do you collect data?
Yeah, I mean, I can say just a few words about that. So data collection has, as mentioned, both top down and bottom up. So we used the data the data from European platforms and databases, as well as we also included data from national databases, and by contacting in each case ministries and who regional level, you mean? National level. Well, no, the main idea was to go to the LAO level, so to take the data of the cities. But yeah, sometimes those data were not ready yet ready or not available. So in many cases we had to organize the gathering data in a very creative way. So contacting institutions that were in charge of data management and monitoring, and also, as I said at the beginning, by asking to municipalities to provide their own specific databases and desk analysis. So we sometimes analyze project by project and include in our database the content of the project. So the third one was about this.
One more issue about the data, which is very interesting. That in some cases, for data from the 21-27 period, which is
we can't hear Ivan.
Yes, so sometimes when we asked about data for the 21-27 period, we got the answer that no data is available because they are not they are still open, but they are not controlled yet, not validated yet, and data will be available in 2029. 2 years after the period has been closed, and then data will be available because they are validated. Now, this is a disaster, because if you function on that way, then you cannot make any monitoring of any program if you will get the data only 2 years after the program has been closed. So
you might have the data.
You can exactly. You cannot, in this case, in this particular case, when at the local level or functional urban area level or metropolitan, as you want, you need the data very, very fast. Otherwise, you start the new plan, the new programming period, the new decision operative, but you don't have a really summary or results of the past program, the past policy.
Yeah, I think the question of data and the timing of data, it is quite crucial. Otherwise, yeah, we do cohesion policy sometimes without having the updated data on how the previous programming period has been implemented. While I think I can answer also to the last question, which is about who decides what role a city plays in cohesion policy. This is very who decides, who has the power. So actually, currently, the European Union has some kind of rules in deciding, because in the current discussion about MMF, of course, the European Commission can say something, can recognize directly the rule of the cities by recognizing earmark, but also making more like evident the importance of cities. There are in each country can decide whether to include cities in the cohesion policy process or not. Sometimes also regions, depends on the architectural organization arrangement of the state. Some kinds of regions has also the power to include cities. For instance, Italy, as it is a regionalized country, there are many examples of regions that used to integrate ITI without like the permission of the country, because they have their own operational program, and they can decide by their own how much or how to integrate cities and urban areas in the implementation of the urban dimension of cohesion policy. So the answer is not has the answer of this question is relatively complicated. It depends on where you are and who you are, basically.
This brings in sometimes the political aspect. If there is no clear European framework how to include cities in each countries, then it can easily happen that a national government is excluding cities because some of them are oppositional politically. So you know there are a lot of cases where you have a conservative national government, but you have democratic or liberal city leaders, and then there are political conflicts between the national and local government. And then if the national government alone makes the decisions about how to include cities, then they can use this political aspect. This is the reason why it is very important to have strong European framework and strong European rules how you have to deal with cities.
Sorry, think about urban planning, because the matter, urban planning and the urban transformation are in the hands of local authorities all in Europe, even with different political structure and so on. And then this is one crucial question, open question, still open. Thank you for all. To all, and now we are going to go a little break. Yes, stop. 20 minutes.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you for all the participants to join us today, and for the experts who presented the ERDICO study in the first part of this learning event today. My contribution concentrates more on the policy context of the ERDICO research. As the research itself, it was very well presented by other experts. Budapest, as the leading stakeholder, started to think together with Eurocities 2 years ago to conduct research to map up how cohesion policy in the past 10 years impacted and affected local level governments, municipalities, cities, how efficient and successful cohesion policy was in the local level. And that's why we decided to apply for the ESPON support to conduct this study. In fact, the evolution of urban cohesion in the past two budgetary cycle of the European Union showed a little bit mixed pattern. Between 2014 and 2020, there were elements of decentralization, stronger respect for the multi-level governance, integrated territorial investments were introduced, and also some local empowerment were part of the MFF, the multi-annual financial framework, between 14 and 20. Unfortunately, the 21-27 MFF took almost a complete turn back on decentralization and local empowerment. And why there were some promising developments like the sustainable urban development earmarking in the RDF framework, still we realized kind of creeping centralization, especially after the introduction of the RRF framework, which was an absolutely centralized system. And it had an impact on the entire ERDF and cohesion policy framework as well. And more centralization was part of the system, and less involvement of the local level was experienced in this 21-27 MFF. The subsidiarity was systematically losing ground across Europe on the European level and on the member state level as well. It's a good question whether is it good or not to centralize the system. Of course, the Commission always argues that a centralized system might become more effective, more efficient, and that's why a quicker, perhaps easier to manage, and kind of simplification can be linked to decentralization of the management of EU funds, and that's why they shifted towards the centralized model of the management of EU funds. We believe, and we believed already at the start of the project, that this is not true, or this is not underpinned by clear scientific evidences. In fact, we believe that perhaps it's just the opposite, and a better involvement of the local level may contribute to the efficiency of management of the funds and the entire cohesion policy framework. We assume that a direct control on the local level could contribute to a more efficient delivery by the cities. More context appropriate green and social transitions can be financed in this framework. Also, we saw that sometimes on the national level there are some bottlenecks. The centralized allocation could lead to strategic mismatch and bureaucratic delays in the management of funds. And also there is a democratic or political consideration that this very top-down management system alienates the local citizens from the EU's outcomes, or it's more difficult to link the results of the financed projects with the EU. As it was already presented by Erblin and others before, and Ivan, in the ERDICO study also we realized that there are very different levels of centralization in the
Benedek, sorry, excuse me. Can you put in full screen?
Than just a kind of formal involvement of the local level. Yeah, I was asked to put this in.
We are putting your slide in full screen, if you could do that. Benedek.
There it is. Just 1 sec.
Yes, sure.
Perhaps it's better now. So, and in Hungary, we had a very specific experience, a strong centralization of the management of the EU funds in Hungary. The subnational level was basically hollowed out by the national government, the systemic elimination of independent regional agencies, and the local governments were experienced in the past 1.5 decades in Hungary. Also, we experienced the top-down programming. So in the ERDF design, there was a very concentrated approach, which gave all the decision-making competencies into the central government and to the ministries. And also the partnership was bypassed. Almost completely excluded the municipalities and the local level governments, including Budapest, from the design of the EU program, including the MFF and the RRF programming procedures. And also there were some systemic vulnerabilities in Hungary. The government started to launch a war against especially the capital city of Budapest, but also against many other municipalities. And financial or fiscal weaponization was part of the system. And also we experienced the paradox regarding the implementation or the application of the rule of law conditionality mechanism. The central government behaved in a very hostile way since 2019, since at the municipal elections, opposition mayors were elected in many cities. And this was followed by a fiscal starvation, some additional tax burdens, so cutting back the own resources and incomes of the cities were a daily practice, which finally led to a very dire financial situation in many municipalities, including the city of Budapest. And finally, in the case of the rule of law conditionality mechanism, while the EU applied the rule of law conditionalities and suspended the sources for Hungary, the government forwarded the effects of this suspension in a politically biased way, and they blocked all the payments for the opposition-led municipalities, while government-led municipalities still got access to EU funding in spite of the partial suspension of the funds. And finally, also we realized previously that there might be strong policy mismatches. The government has very rigid priorities, which goes against the extremely complex local realities. Sometimes the fundings were in silos, so there were no communication between different financing channels. Fragmented instruments were experienced, so the thematic division in the different operational programs prevented urban regeneration projects to combine different sources. And in the RRF case, the very short deadlines and the centralized design undermined the long-term special planning of the municipalities. That's why we launched the Erdiko project. We collected 8 cities to cooperate, to map up how the cohesion policy was implemented on the local level in the cities in the 2 previous multi-annual financial framework. The study itself or the research was already presented, so I just make a quick list of the recommendations of the Erdiko research. One of the most important recommendations for the European level is the mandatory co-design. So the recommendation is that the partnership principle should be legally enforced between states and cities. There is a need for a mandatory consultation and partnership principle with also some sanctions in case of non-compliance. Also, direct access to funding should be strengthened. More EU funds should be directly available by the cities, not only to give the right to distribute and allocate the distribution and allocation of funds to the national government hands. There is a need for, and this was also already mentioned, there is a need for a reform in the indicators. We should move beyond the GDP per capita, as it doesn't really measure how the local governments, the metropolitan governments are really financed. So the GDP per capita does not provide information on the financial reality of the local government. Also, there is a need of the smart conditionalities, meaning that in case of suspension of EU funds due to non-compliance with the rule of law conditionalities or other, still municipalities, local and regional governments should have a direct access to EU funding. And there is a need for a ring fencing, labeling for the local municipal level to cities, a guarantee for a mandatory minimum share for local territorial development. The city of Budapest started to work on distributing and disseminating the outcomes of the Erdős study in different ways. Also, we had a lot of meetings with the European Commission, direct meetings with the European Commission Executive Vice President Raffaele Fitto and his team, and also with the DGs. The results of the research were also cited by many official European studies and reports. So the data was officially integrated into, for example, the European Parliament's budgetary committee's briefing for the members of the Budget Committee in the European Parliament, and also they were used to shape the EESC opinion on the EU cities agenda. So what I already can tell you that since the results were published in February, the results are already used vastly by the EU institutions. Also, we made some outreach in the member states, so we try to involve and engage the member states as well. So we presented comparative territorial results directly to the EU's Directors General for Urban Matters in the meeting under the Cypriotic presidency in Cyprus. We are having a very intensive lobbying in the European Parliament, a cross-party political advocacy, partly direct contacts with the members of the European Parliament, and to convince them that they should take into consideration the results of the Erdős study, and also mayors of the participating stakeholder cities had meetings across the conservative EPP group, the Socialists and Democrats, Greens and Renew MEPs in the European Parliament, and also we presented the results to the European Parliament's Urban Forum. Also, we paid a lot of attention to public communication and media presence of the results. We issued multiple articles in different member states, including Italy, Erblin and Pietro Revilio from Eurocities wrote an article in 24 Ore, and also in Hungary and other places there were articles in prominent press outlets, and also we communicated the results in many municipal platforms. And we are going to have an important important event in the European Parliament, a high-level MEP-hosted public event at the European Parliament at the end of June, which is still before the summer break, and we hope that there we can further convince MEPs to take into consideration the ERDICO studies results and recommendations when it comes to the design of the next MFF, the 28-34 MFF, which is on the table and under discussion in the European Parliament. So the next MFF discussions should be heavily shaped by the ERDICO study results. On behalf of the city of Budapest, based on the study, we drafted textual amendments, around 50 amendments, to defend the partnership principle, to strengthen multi-level governance and subsidiarity, the decentralization of Ez nagyban megkönnyíti. Is it better now?
Még a 4-es szlájdon.
It's perfect now. Thank you, Benedek.
Yes, thank you. It's okay now. It's not possible to put in full screen.
Is it better now?
Yes,
Anyway,
now we see the slide you are talking about.
Yes.
Slide number 10.
Okay, so now we are already at the slide 10. These amendments which we drafted are about defending the partnership principle, multi-level governance, subsidiarity.
Slide number 10.
Okay, so now we are already at the slide 10. Okay, and also advocating direct funding for cities, a mandatory urban ring fencing and safeguarding mechanism to codify urban challenges as a structural priority. Based on these 50 amendments, we already had consultations with the rapporteurs, shadows, and political groups, securing successful text inclusion in the EP interim report, which is already adopted, and we hope that also our amendments will make part of the sectorial files like the NRPP, the national plans. Regulation also will include some of our amendments. What are the future prospects? What we expect that which are the recommendations coming from the ERDICO study could finally end up in being adopted in the decision-making process of the European institutions. We have to see that in the European Parliament there is a very strong backing of most of our proposals, and the most important political groups, including the EPP, SND, Renew, and Greens, are supporting almost all of our proposals. But of course, the European Parliament is only one of the co-legislators, and whatever will be adopted at the end of the day by the European Parliament, it should survive the trialogues, the discussions between the institutions, the Parliament, the Commission, and the Council. In the Commission, also we have very and we try to convince them to support our proposals. They are interested in some specific areas, for example, this safeguarding mechanism of smart conditionality to maintain the direct access of cities to suspended funds in case of non-compliance of the member states. We had many discussions on that with the Commission, and they seem to support it already. A kind of form of it is already part of the Commission proposal, but this still needs further work. Finally, the Council will be the difficult part of this equation, because of course the national governments are less interested in decentralization, multi-level governance, and any mandatory expectations for the member state governments themselves. So we are looking for partnerships in the Council, governments may support the idea of decentralization, multi-level governance, partnership, and so on and so forth. We have already some contacts in some of the member states, but this is going to be the most difficult part of the entire story. In fact, the urban ring fencing is something which seems to be the most difficult part. Even in the EP, there are some reservations regarding this targeted financing to urban challenges, but we are still lobbying for. The future of the European Urban Initiative, which is a direct funding channel, is still unknown, but we have a good hope that finally we can still save it and to include a considerable amount of money into a direct urban financing scheme. Also, Eurocities and the city of Budapest proposed to increase the actually or currently 500 million euros to more than 4 billion euros for the next 7 years budget. So the bottom line is that the parliament is a strong ally for us to push for these recommendations and proposals based on the urban or the Erdiko study, but the ongoing negotiations and discussions are still difficult, and the trialogues between the three institutions will be the most challenging part of the story. In a nutshell, and I finish with that, this is the policy-making framework, and this is to point out that the Erdiko project, ESPON Erdiko project, was not simply scientific study or research, but it has a clear aim to have a strong data-based evidence to make strong proposals to the policymaking on the EU level, and the results of the Erdiko research were translated into very practical textual amendments to the different files, the different regulations regarding the next MFF, and the work hasn't stopped with the publication of the ESPON Erdiko study. It's just to have the final results of the study, but a fair share of the work is still ahead to lobby and push for taking into consideration the results when it comes to policymaking in the European institutions.
Thank you. Thank you, Benedict. Your role is particularly important because you are both a stakeholder, but also a member in the European Parliament, the insider of the European Parliament. So we have 2 questions for you. How Erdiko results are helping city and you to design a better policy? Very academic. Do you?
It was already in the earlier.
Yes, okay, yes. Okay. Okay. What, and the other question, what can other cities to do support Budapest and others in ensuring that Erdiko's recommendations are heard?
Yes. So as I already explained, the Erdiko study was the basis of our lobby work because, of course, we had already some initial ideas to strengthening the partnership and multi-level governance. Of course, they don't come out of the blue. These are not things which are completely new or brand new ideas on the area of cohesion policy. But Erdiko was extremely important to have hard evidence-based arguments to underpin and support our claim for that. And in this sense, it's very important because when we go to lobby MEPs or the Commission or the Council, we can show up that it's not only something a city or some city representatives are saying, but this is something which is very strongly underpinned and strengthened and backed by scientific evidences from qualitative and quantitative study of Erdiko. So it's extremely useful to have the study. We can always point out to decision makers that if you don't believe us, just have a look on the ESPON website on the Erdiko study, because it underpins and strengthens our arguments very strongly. And other cities, of course, we do this work together, partly also stakeholder cities in the Erdiko project. They are quite active, including Warsaw, for example. Miroslav perhaps can tell more about that, but the mayor of Warsaw is very active on the European level, and he is also advocating the outcomes of the Erdiko study. The mayor of Ghent, Matthias de Klerk, who is also president of Eurocities, also very strongly advocates the Erdiko report recommendations in each and every level. We met already several times together with EU decision makers, including EVP Raffaele Fitto and others. And in the framework of city networks, European city networks, including Eurocities, but also ICLEI, Local Alliance, Energy Cities, they work very hard. And also we disseminated and shared the results of the Erdiko study with them, and they used these results and evidences when they created their own proposals and position papers. So it's not only the Erdiko stakeholders and not only the city of Budapest, but the entire municipal advocacy network is using the results of the Erdiko study. So partly we directly cooperate with other cities and we work together on the field. And also it's very important that the results are broadly and vastly known and used in the advocacy work of other city networks and other cities as well. So it's really in a way helps other stakeholders and other representatives to strengthen the cause and the lobby work in the European institutions.
Thank you, Benedek. I just want to say something. If there were some issues with seeing the PowerPoint of Benedek, don't worry, because we are already publishing all the PowerPoint at our website, so people can go to our website and download all the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Good morning. It's still morning. It's late morning, but good morning, and thank you very much for inviting
Still morning
me.
so far.
Yes. We are discussing today two very important issues. This is urban dimension of cohesion policy and the role of territorial thinking in European development policy. What I would like to do today is not just simply present Warsaw as a success story, although I think that we are successful, and it might be success story. Instead, I want to use Warsaw as a practical case to reflect on a broader European question. And this question is, what actually happens when cohesion policy meets the realities of metropolitan governance on the ground? I think that this is a fundamental question, and Warsaw is a very good. Warsaw is an interesting case precisely because it combines strong implementation capacity with institutional imperfection. Strong capacity and institutional imperfection. It is a metropolitan area. We are a metropolitan area without formal metropolitan government. And Warsaw has delivered major transformation through cohesion policy, yet it operates within governance arrangements that are structurally incomplete. So this is, I think this is not only a story about Warsaw, it is also a story about how European policy instruments interact with functional urban realities, and what that means for the future design of cohesion policy after 2027. And I would like to start. I would like to start with the basic conceptual point, although it was mentioned in previous presentations. But I think that it's important while talking about Warsaw to mention this issue of territorialization. Why do we talk about territorialization? Because if we look at contemporary processes of urban development, we see that these development processes, they do not respect administrative borders. It seems to be obvious, I mean, the statement, but I think that it's good to repeat it again and again, because from the practice we see that sometimes we operate within these borders, and because of different reasons, we are not ready to overcome and to change our thinking. And it's like not just administrative border, it's not a principle, but some kind of mental barrier to change that should be changed. People commute, labor markets function across jurisdictions. When we look at environmental pressures or infrastructure networks, all of this operate at scales larger than individual municipalities. And of course, it matters how many municipalities we have in our metropolitan area or functional area. But whether we have 10, 20, 30, or 70, still that's the same problem, that you have to think more in terms of functional connections and interactions and arrangements than in this administrative structure, the perspective. Governance structures, they often remain territorially fragmented, and they reflect very often historical or political administrative divisions. They do not reflect functional reality. And this creates a mismatch, which is a big problem when it comes to management of urban development. And I think that territorialization it's not a simply a technical policy concept. I think that it represents a deeper governance shift from managing jurisdictions to managing interdependencies. And I think that that's where the problem is located, because very often we live in the world of jurisdictions and administrative borders, and we don't see or we don't assess in a proper way these interdependencies. So moving from managing jurisdictions to managing interdependencies, that's the key issue, that's the key problem. And I think that this distinction matters enormously for cities, because if the actual geography of development is functional, but the institutional geography remains fragmented, then policy delivery becomes structurally inefficient. We have this policy, we have money, we have goodwill to deliver, but this delivery becomes structurally inefficient. And this is exactly this kind of tension that Warsaw illustrates. It has very important political implications, several policy implications. The first one, and I think extremely important, is that strong cities and territorial cohesion should not be seen as competing agenda. This is sometimes still the political narrative, that investing in major urban centers, that investing in big cities, in metropolitan cities, somehow comes at the expense of territorial balance. But this is not this is analytically misleading. It doesn't work this way. So that's the first thing. That's the first very important policy implication. The second one is that regions, they need strong cities, and cities, they also need regions, because cities are engines of innovation, labor markets, higher education, infrastructure, etc., etc. When we talk about investment attractions or attractiveness of cities or regions, then we talk about, in fact, about these big cities and international connectivity. So we have to see it. We have to understand how it works, and also what is important is that at the same time, cities cannot solve metropolitan challenges alone. They need cooperation with regional level, with regional government. They have to cooperate. Otherwise, we are not making, progress in solving these problems. The third thing is mobility, suburbanization, housing affordability, environmental pressure. We all suffer. I mean, cities suffer, regions suffer, and peri-urban areas and rural areas. So it has to be acknowledged that there is no conflict, that it should be rather, like a teamwork and common action, that territorial cohesion and strong urban development are mutually reinforcing, not contradictory. And that leads to the key governance question, in my opinion. If development processes are territorial, why are governance arrangements still so often administrative rather than functional? So I have some answers to this question. Maybe we can get back to this later. But that's about territorialization and policy implications. Now, specifically about Warsaw and Warsaw metropolitan area. Warsaw offers a fascinating example here because it's a large metropolitan system. And as I said, it doesn't have a formal metropolitan government. So there is no strong institutional authority governing the entire metropolitan territory. Yet we are metropolitan cities, and in fact, we are the most powerful metropolis in Poland. In the first programming period, as you can see on the slide, it was Warsaw plus 39 municipalities. During the second programming period, we have 40 municipalities, including Warsaw. This is 9 counties included. So, but still, we don't have this formal government, and so what we have, I would call soft metropolitan governance, because we have Warsaw Metropolis Association, and this association plays a coordination and trust building role. And ITI instruments, in our case, became the practical governance architecture through which metropolitan cooperation could actually happen. This is very important. We don't have other instruments. And ITI has not simply been a funding tool. I think that partially it has compensated for the absence of formal metropolitan government. So that's our reality, very briefly described. And Warsaw, as I said, is a good case because this is big city, strong city, powerful economic center, political center, and we don't have this formal metropolitan government. Why? I put on this slide that Warsaw is a strong case. Why? Because Warsaw, although the institutional model is not perfect, but Warsaw is a strong case because of, I think, unusually strong capacity. Warsaw has an experienced administrative apparatus. In Warsaw, the structure, there is European Funds and Development Policy Department, and this department effectively acts as what I would describe as a coordination and quality center, which means that this is not only about technical project management, but also about strategic filtering, alignment, preparation, coherence checking, this kind of stuff. And Warsaw Metropolis Association has gradually strengthened trust among municipalities because this cooperation, if this is not formalized, then trust and understanding and political will to cooperation is extremely important. And I also think that what is, in our case, important is that Warsaw has built internal governance discipline. So sectoral strategies are not isolated documents. They are anchored in a broader strategic architecture. So at the bottom of the slide, you see there is a chain: institutional coordination leading to cooperation, cooperation leading to strategic coherence leading to enabling implementation capacity, and then we have implementation capacity enabling territorial delivery. So that is why Warsaw performs relatively strongly. How cohesion policy works on the ground? This is where my story becomes especially interesting, because from the outside, cohesion policy is often seen primarily as a financial financing mechanism. But in Warsaw, its role has been much broader. Warsaw works through a hierarchy of planning instruments. At the top is this development strategy that I mentioned, but there are also sectoral strategies: mobility, environment, climate adaptation, etc. So this creates strategic continuity, and this is very important. This continuity matters because it allows European funding to be embedded into long-term development trajectories. So the cohesion policy is not just paying for disconnected investments. It becomes a mechanism through which European priorities are translated into place-based urban transformation. And ITI, of course, is important because it helps to convert broad policy objectives into coherent metropolitan investment packages, not isolated projects, but different linked interventions. As I said, I'm using Warsaw as an example because this is, from one hand, we don't have these formal arrangements. From the other hand, we are innovative enough to find ourselves in this sophisticated metropolitan political environment. It's not easy. This is difficult. This is difficult task. What kind of lessons we learned? So what lessons emerged? First lesson is that institutional capacity matters enormously. And as I said, Warsaw is an example of strong, very well developed institutional capacity. But we also, that's another part of this lesson, that capacity alone is not enough. Warsaw performs partly because of its leadership, institutional memory, because there is a staff, very professional staff, technical experience, and there is also this technical discipline, that there is this hierarchy of programming and planning documents. But of course, if we look at Warsaw case from the European perspective, we cannot design European policy assuming that every metropolitan area has Warsaw's capacity profile, because we know that this is not the case of all big cities. The second lesson would be that ITI works. ITI genuinely works, even if the absence of formal metropolitan government. ITI is very useful. It creates incentives for cooperation. And I think that this is very important achievement. ITI works well. Does it work? Yes. The answer would be yes. Does it work well? Yes. Can it work better? Yes. But it works, according to regulations that we have, what ITI can do. The third lesson would be that voluntary governance has limits. And it's also obvious, but we cannot think, but I'm saying this because we cannot think about ITI as if we don't have this metropolitan government and regulations, then ITI will solve our problems. No, it will not solve, because when strategic conflicts emerge, especially around land use, metropolitan planning, infrastructure priorities, then soft cooperation becomes insufficient, unfortunately. Fourth lesson would be that multi-level governance is often less harmonious in practice than the theory suggests. Multi-level governance looks good on paper, but when it comes to practice, in reality, there are tensions between local, regional, and national levels, and very frequently they slow delivery. And finally, and Erbli mentioned it earlier, that large city should participate in programming, should be more active partners for, or should be allowed to be actor in this process of designing different things, because large cities are still too often treated as implementers rather than strategic policy partners. And policy recommendations for post 2027 cohesion policy. This is, again, I will probably present in a little different way what was said before, but the first thing is that metropolitan areas, they need clearer recognition as strategic development actors, not just delivery territories, but strategic actors. And that's the first thing. So all these lobbying activities are extremely important, and dissemination of Urdico results project are also very important. The second thing is that governance matters, and that if Europe wants territorial delivery, it cannot ignore governance architecture. It depends. Every country has different solutions. Every country has different arrangements. When it comes to spatial planning, we all know that they are very deeply rooted in history of public administration and how these competences are allocated and distributed, etc., etc. But functional territories, they need governance arrangements that actually match the operational realities. I mean, you can't talk about functional integration and at the same time you deal with fragmented governance model. The fourth recommendation would be about financing framework. Financing frameworks, they need realism, because if we have, for example, large urban transitions, especially transport infrastructure, which are very capital intensive, then if we have too rigid rules, strategic transformation becomes harder. It's pretty difficult, to implement these big infrastructure projects. And I'm not talking just, to lose all these regulations. They are very important. We are spending public money and we have to control, etc., etc. But some kind of flexibility, depending on what kind of project we are talking about, is very needed. And the last recommendation would be about simplification. Simplifications matters. When administrative procedures are unpredictable, it weakens delivery capacity. Even strong cities lose efficiency when procedures becomes unpredictable or excessively complex. Then it creates problems. And the last slide, conclusions. I think that what I put here on this slide, Warsaw is both. Warsaw case. What does Warsaw ultimately tells us? Warsaw is both encouraging and cautionary. Encouraging because it shows that cities can innovate institutionally even in imperfect governance conditions. Conditions are not perfect, but we innovate. We are at the local level, innovative, and we know how to operate in this environment. And cautionary because it also shows that limits of relying on improvisation and soft arrangements, that you cannot just believe that it will work somehow. It won't work. It should be changed. ITI works, but works within the limits of institutional design, so it's clear. And since we have pretty good experience with cohesion policy in Warsaw, I may say that, as I mentioned before, it was not only about money, it was not only a funding source, but it was like a strategic development framework. If we look at agenda or different agendas, different policies in Warsaw, then green infrastructure, reduction of pollutions and different things, they just align, they come together with European policies preferences. And perhaps the most important conclusion is that strong cities and territorial cohesion are not opposing objectives. This narrative, when people say that, yes, you develop your city at the expense of this municipality, etc. This narrative is misleading, is wrong. So the real challenge from our perspective is the real challenge is governance alignment, and functional geographies. They require functional governance. And I think that the Turdico case studies, not only Warsaw, they prove that some kind of changes in our thinking about this territorial development, that this thinking should be advanced more, and cities, they should be recognized as important partners. Yes, basically that's what I wanted to say. This is the most important lesson emerging not only from Warsaw, but from the broader Udrico case studies experience, I think. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Exactly, I was waiting for a question, at least from an EU students and non-EU students. Do you want to come here because the... Okay, thank you.
Dzień dobry, hello. Because I lived in Warsaw for many years, I'm interested. Is it possible for you to pinpoint particular projects that were made possible by these policies, these funds, or is it more like they're just merged and dissolved into the full pot funds for Warsaw?
Transportation infrastructure in Warsaw, subway, trams, these investments that are very costly, and without support from EU funds, we would do that because we know that we need it, because this is like a strategic, objective for us. But it will take us more time probably, and we will have to wait with some other investments and implementation of other plans without it. So I think that infrastructure, green transition, different projects. I'm not prepared now, to list all these projects, but there is hundreds of major infrastructural and other projects related to like a clean air, this green transition that I mentioned, also solving social problems. The project, I don't know where. So you said that you lived in Warsaw for a couple of years. Where did you live, Warsaw? Are you familiar with the project New Center of Warsaw, Nowe Centrum Warszawy? This is the project that is also funded from this, and this is like transformation of the central part of Warsaw. And this is pretty deep transformation in this sense that we are trying, to change both on the left side, also on the right side of the river, public spaces, introduction of more green areas, slowing down the traffic, opening streets for.
But can you Mirek tell some projects which are outside the border of Warsaw, which are metropolitan projects?
Metropolitan projects, that's different story, because it works this way. ITI works this way, that these are. I'm not sure whether you are asking about generally EU money or just about projects under ITI, because ITI works for the whole metropolitan area, and projects that are implemented under ITI, they have to be listed in the strategy and agreed within this group these municipalities from the Warsaw Metropolis Association. And this project, beneficiaries should be different municipalities. And usually in big projects, Warsaw is also involved as a municipality, because Warsaw official status is also municipality. So from the point of view of metropolitan governance, I would say that park and ride investments in different parts of the metropolitan area, they are very important because they facilitate, these flows of passengers and transportation generally in Warsaw and surrounding municipalities. There are also investments concerning location of new businesses, this is like preparation of areas that, new economic activities can be located. So we don't have this growth pole, Warsaw, and then, the rest that people from this metropolitan area, they are commuting, they are coming to Warsaw to work. So we are thinking about balancing development and creating conditions for economic development in different municipalities. Plus, this is also about improving living conditions in municipalities from the metropolitan area. You also have to remember that this metropolitan area, that's the problem, because it's very internally differentiated. So you have pretty wealthy municipalities, you have municipalities that are doing pretty well in terms of economic performance. But I mentioned on my slides that in the first programming period, we had 39 municipalities. Now we have 70. And the differences are now even bigger. Since the Warsaw metropolitan area, it's a NUTS 2. Warsaw, I haven't talked about it, but we are located in Mazowsze. This is Mazowieckie Voivodeship. And Mazowieckie Voivodeship is the wealthiest voivodeship if you look at the GDP. But then Warsaw and its metropolitan area is responsible for like generates about 25 up to 28% of GDP. And of course, if you look at this picture, then you see that there is like a very wealthy area of Warsaw metropolis, and then you have this region. So the decision was made to change the NUTS subdivision, and we have 16 regions, but we have 17 NUTS units. And Warsaw metropolitan area is this NUTS 2. So statistically, we have this delineation of the NUTS 2, and this is important because it has impact on access to EU funds, in the sense that if we have municipalities from Warsaw metropolitan area, this co-financing level is 50%, which means that they have to contribute more than other municipalities from the rest of the region of Mazowsze, because the region is poorer. The Warsaw metropolitan area is richer. So for some municipalities, it's not a problem. But for those who joined the association and they are in the peripheries of the metropolitan area, for some of them, it might be a problem. So it doesn't work perfectly. I didn't want to create, the picture that everything is going perfectly and it's harmonized and it's coordinated, etc., etc. But I said that in the situation when you don't have a formal metropolitan government, the fact that you have the core city, Warsaw, working together on development plans for the whole metropolitan area, and they speak the same language, all municipalities, this is very important. They prepared, there is a new plan, it's called Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, that was adopted, I think, this year or last year, but it's pretty new, and it was agreed, and it was commented, and it was approved by all municipalities. So, this is a process. We started this process. If you want to be effective in programming and delivering different things, you have to have infrastructure, institutional infrastructure, and you have mechanism, and you have to have actors who are interested in cooperation. So it takes time. That's my answer. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. Oh, I was asked to say my name and where I'm from. So, my name is Hubert, but probably it's interesting where I'm from is because I'm from Vilnius, Lithuania, but I lived in Warsaw for some of now count the 6, 7 years, I think. Yeah, 6 years.
So, okay, so it's long enough. You can apply for citizenship, I think. That's now.
Not
No?
not going to do that, but but
Okay, you are not interested. Okay.
no, I'm good with my Lithuanian citizenship, but
I
yes, I
understand.
love Warsaw, and I know the projects you're talking about, the Green Center of Warsaw, which is basically from the Palace of Culture. It's going the big promenade that's being built right now towards the river, right?
Yeah, we have a new I mean new investment. I don't know whether you are familiar or not. This is like a kind of bridge for pedestrians and bike riders connecting Powiśle with Praga, with Praga district of Warsaw.
Yes, the
And
famous Kładka. Yes.
yes, famous Kładka, exactly. So yeah, it's changing, and as I said at the beginning when I started to answer your question, I think that you you have to. I mean, what we need in our cities still, although they have gone through very deep transformation, I believe, in our parts of Europe. I mean, the Central Europe. But we need new ideas. We need new concepts. We have to think and discuss different frameworks that allow us, to implement all these changes. And that's why I said that cohesion fund was not just only about money. It was also about new concept, new ideas, new propositions, how to deal with urban development. And ITI, of course, is because ITI is very new instrument. I mean, 8 years of experience, it's nothing when you have to talk with people because we are talking like I mentioned multi-level governance and I said that on paper it looks very attractive. In reality, you may have problems with this. When you ask people about multi-level governance, probably everyone will tell you, yes, sure, we exercise multi-level governance. But of course, because we have to prepare documents, planning documents required by law, so then we have to consult municipalities with marszałek, with the regional government, etc. But what does it mean in practice? I mean, is it genuine cooperation and dialogue when you look for the best solutions for your territory? Because I have doubts. I'm very skeptical. I think that pretty often, something important is missing, and this something important is like a common understanding of different problems that they have to be discussed, and you have to define, you have to understand intentions of these people from this level of government and this level of government, and have a good assessment of needs and possibilities and development potentials. And if you have two models of multi-level governance. The first one is based on structures that exist, and it's relatively easy, to exercise this multi-level governance because the system is stable, because there are administrative borders, you have governments, you have competences, you have powers, money, etc., and it's easy. The second model, it's about network. It's about networking,
Thank
different partners, etc.
thank
So,
you. Thank you, Miroslav.
okay, I'm done.
Marianne,
Sorry.
we have questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You are very
And
welcome.
and we have other two questions. If you can answer very briefly, they missed. Okay. What is it like to work as an academic or on an international ESPON project? What has your experience with Urdico been like? Very shortly. Yes.
Very shortly.
Wonderful or not?
Yeah, exciting and wonderful, and I'm dreaming about the next Urdico project. That's the answer.
Thank you.
You
What
are welcome.
role do local stakeholders play in shaping and implementing the ITI? More or less, this question was already.
They are very important. Whatever is the system is structured this way that without the approval, without the consultations with them, etc., nothing will work. So that's the mechanism that we have in Warsaw.
Okay, thank you again. Piera, what do you think about the break? We can shorten.
I think we deserve a break now, and yes, you tell me it's okay. How long?
Until 45. Okay. 45.
So we are back at 12:45.
Yes, sure. Thank you.
See you later.
Welcome back. And well, actually, we are just checking if everything is working, but it seems to. So, hello again. This second part of the presentation, I mean, my presentation, is about the case of Florence. I have been asked, so I have like a mandate from Luisa and Piera as well to briefly introduce the case of Florence and then to focus to the metro tool, the one that Italy has, while other countries have not. Okay, so my contribution will like split in two different, or in the same presentation, but with two different objectives. I will try to make it. Okay, so the case of Florence. What we were going to discuss, of course, is just to briefly introduce to contextualize the cohesion policy in Italy. So how it works, as we learned, each country implement cohesion policy in different way. Somehow, we will discuss a bit on the case of Florence. So and from different perspectives, from the governance, administrative capacity, and also how this the cohesion policy has changed or influenced the long-term agenda. And of course, we will discuss a bit on the funding schemes. Then the second part will focus mainly on, as I said, on discussing with you why we consider PON Metro as a good practice, and we will see which are like the reasons back. So let's move and see, like, contextualize a bit the case. Contextualize a bit the case of Florence. As you see, Florence is part of a functional area. If you see from the map, so the pink is describes the functional area according to the European definition, while the yellow color instead defines the metropolitan area of the city of Florence as defined by Italian law on metropolitan subdivision. Okay, so if you look, so we have the city, the core, so the municipality, which is really super is within geography, which is quite interesting from institutional perspective, because it is part of an formal institution like a metropolitan city, and however there are no perfect overlapping of course the boundaries. Also, if we consider the FUA. So the idea is to look also to the institutional organization, of course, of Italy, as I mentioned at the in the previous presentation. Italy has this multi-level governance in implementing cohesion policy. So there is a more or less shared responsibility across the national, regional, and local level, and there are many authorities that are responsible for. Here you can see a list of course, but there are also other We sometimes overlook the regional level because for timing reason, but also regions in Italy have a very strong rule in implementation cohesion policy. In particular, Tuscany region is managing ERDF and ESF plus funds as well. While if you remember the case of Florence that I briefly introduced in the previous presentation, so Florence is under the category of acting together. So the city of Florence has a strong contribution gives a strong contribution of the implementation of cohesion policy in Italy, because the rule that is recognized by Pon Metro as an intermediate target. Yes, I think that you already know Pon, but we will see it also later. So if we move down from the hierarchical organization of the country, then of course, so after the region, we have the metropolitan level, where we see the metropolitan city of Florence, and then we have local level. Within the local level, so within a municipality, there are many authority bodies that are in charge of coordinating and implementing cohesion policy with different responsibilities, of course. If we compare, then where or if there were changes from the two programming periods under analysis, we can see that there are very limited changes, like in the number of programs at the national level. So in the previous programming period, we have 50 programs, while in the current one we have 43 programs. I mean, when we discuss, when we say these figures, it means that all programs, including the regional one, including the different kind of funding, so ERDF and ESF. Okay, so all programs that are dedicated to cohesion, to the implementation of cohesion policy are counted. I mean, are included in these numbers. While if you look to the funding mechanism, in particular to the funding that has been dedicated to the implementation of the metro plan, program, we see that in the first programming period, so in 14-20, there was an allocation of almost 2 billion euros dedicated to only like 14 metropolitan cities. So for Florence, it was around 122 million of euro. Why is it important to say that? Is because these funds are managed by the city with the mandate to implement metropolitan or metropolitan projects with metropolitan characteristics. Okay. If you look to the 21-27, so the metro plus city Città Media Sud counts around 3 billion. So there is an increasing of around 33%. However, of course, there are also other cities that are involved. So the average, the allocation for Florence is more or less the same. It's it's a bit more than the last period, but there is this funding continuity that we'll see also later, which is very, very important, because if you know that you have these funds available for 7 years, you can plan. So that's why if the strategy, why the metro is very, very interesting. If you look to institutional capacity and innovations, of course, then we already said something also when in the comparative part. So usually cities are ready to implement cohesion policy, but they may lack of human capacities, so human resources. There is internal reorganization and resources allocation. So sometimes these do not allow continuity, as I said before about funding, and you lose institutional memory in terms of if someone leave an office, you have to then train someone new, and this will take a lot of time, and they will increase your difficulties also in implementing projects. So resources, human resources in particular, are fundamental to guarantee project continuity. There was also, for some cases, in particular, also in the case of Florence, co-financing rate is quite challenging. Not for metro, because metro is already co-financed by it has no co-financing issue. But if you want to apply for Horizon, for instance, you have to co-finance. No, for European territorial cooperation, then you have to co-finance by yourself, and this co-financing issue sometimes it becomes an issue if you do not plan in advance. When we look to the I mean, if you look, there are many innovations in terms of processes, authorities, way in which and also coordination across the various bodies that are in charge of implementing cohesion policy. Indeed, Florence, since the beginning, have introduced this joint office for European projects, where it is where they collect and coordinate the city actions towards the implementation of cohesion policy, and also for benefiting from EU direct funds. I think that this can somehow we can skip it because we already discussed and it's not necessary. What is interesting to see is that if you look to the documents that the city, but also not only the city, used to, I mean, has introduced not only for the implementation of cohesion policy, but that can be complementary with the implementation of cohesion policy. There are many tools, and those tools are somehow coherent with some European priorities. And this is, I mean, this is one of the indicators of the fact that cohesion policy can also influence the policy priorities and trajectories of the city. Okay, so there is a. If we consider the 21-27, the majority of documents that are relevant for the city and the territory around are always in line with the policy objectives of cohesion policy 21-27. If you remember this P0, P1, P2, they know. Yeah. So,
for the city, closer to citizens,
are very, very important. Yeah. So, and this let's say coherence is very important, because if your strategies are coherent with the priorities, you can understand that maybe it's easier for you to attract funds because are in line with what is somehow defined above. And of course, if we look to the funding and schemes and synergies, there is a list of projects, not a list of projects, but you can see from the figures that there have been implemented in several projects, if you look also the different programming periods. What is relevant is also the total amount of funds that somehow sometimes consider the municipality of Florence as a municipality. Sometimes also you have also to consider the metropolitan area, because of the fact that Metro and Metro Plus has this metropolitan mandate. So you have to ensure that projects have a metropolitan impact, okay, and interest. And of course, there are also other kind of funds. So in the funding scheme and synergies, you will always find direct management funds like Horizon, Life, Interreg, and so on and so forth. And those also are very strategic for the city of Florence and the territory around. If you look from a very general perspective, here is the summary of funds that Florence has benefited, and here is clear the funding continuity is very, very similar from if we consider the two different programming periods. And I mean, this is quite positive because, as I said, if you know in advance how many million do you have, then you can plan for you can plan accordingly. If you don't know, and this might become a problem for an institutional issue in determining political priorities. For Florence in particular, we had a lot of data concerning the RRF, so the Recovery and Resilience Fund, and you see also the importance of the fund in terms of total amount, and this is those figures are related with the national program, but then also Florence got is benefiting from these funds, and also here is over 1.3 billion in the which is quite different from the figures about European cohesion policy. This because it was one initiative. There will not be, I mean, at least a similar initiative in the future, because this is an extreme, this comes from the COVID. So the reason why European Union has decided to implement the resilient, the recovery resilient mechanism is because to react to the impact of the COVID. But anyway, you see also the number of projects that have been implemented or are in the process of implementing, and not only in the city of Florence, but also in the metropolitan area and also in other cities around or that are part of the metropolitan area. There are a lot of challenges, of course, as I said, and also as in case of Warsaw, Miroslav was mentioning, city is doing well, but then still there are some issues that each city, not only Florence, is facing, and project-based approach somehow, and even territorial capacities. So while the city is good, the municipalities around the city are sometimes too small to be really active or to have the resources, human resources, to implement cohesion policy, and this gives to the city the responsibility to help them somehow, to support them somehow. There is this staff shortage or lack of staff somehow. And also there are different issues at the regional and local level. While, and this is the second part of the presentation, and let's focus on the Metro and Metro Plus as a good practice. First, what is Metro? Metro is a EU-funded national program for funding initiatives aimed at enhancing urban development in metropolitan areas and medium-sized cities in southern Italy. This is the definition that has been given by the ministry and the agency at the time for Metro Plus. If you read this very simple sentence, you can see that it has urban development and metropolitan area character. This is clearly for cities and metropolitan cities, some cities and all metropolitan cities. It is a national one. It means that it's organized at a national level, but there is a delegation of responsibility from the national to the local level. And this somehow reflects the idea of co-responsibility, and that the European Union has, I mean, in its governance perspective. So the objective is to promote urban development with metropolitan relevance and characteristics, and those are the data regarding the who is involved or who was involved in this program. In particular, as I said, in this programming period, we have 14 plus 39 small and medium cities in the south that are considered beneficiary. Not all of them are intermediate body. Intermediate body is again another level of co-responsibility. If you look at the governance, so the managing authority remains at the national level, so there is a central control somehow. But while cities serve as intermediate bodies, mainly the metropolitan cities, they are called autorità urbane, with dedicated resources, functions, and responsibilities. This is very important. The method, how this program has been implemented and conceptualized and then implemented is also interesting, and it reflects this co-programming and co-responsibility principles or concepts in a multi-level perspective. So cities are agents of transformation responsible for implementing their own strategy. So they are part of the mechanism. They are not only benefiting, but they are part of, so they are active part. And those two pictures, let's say, diagrams, really can tell you the process. In particular, if you look to the second here, the second one, you can really follow the methodology that has been used and the approach that has been applied in the process, and you see that every time this local level has been involved whenever decisions were, I mean, in different steps of decision-making process. Okay, so they have been consulted at the beginning, or they have been involved in defining the local priorities. Each city was forced or invited to have their own strategy, the operational plan at the local level, and through this plan, they got the authority to become an intermediate body and to work in tandem with the central level. So this dichotomy, central level, local level, is not an issue if you look the program, if you look how the program has been organized. And here you can see some data and also the coherence with the objectives of the cohesion policy. If you look, OP1 and OP2 are target are the main target, but also other target other objectives have been also part of the process, so have been included in as priority. Here, Smarter Europe for OP1, policy objective 1, and greener and low carbon Europe for policy objective 2. This, I think, is also good to know. So if we spatialize the cities that are part of the process of metro, you see that from the 2 programming periods, the southern part of Italy is covered by the program. As I said, in a different way. So they have the possibility to benefit from cohesion policy, from PON metro, but they are not all of them. So not all municipalities are intermediate body, because intermediate body is a quite like important responsibility, and you have to have the staff that has to be trained for covering this.
In Sicily.
3, I think, right? It's a lot. Okay, this is yes, of course. This is like another issue. So how the Rio law has been then interpreted in practice. Yeah, and so why is important? So if you look to the list of advantages, so there are many advantages, and partly we already discussed part of them. What if you look to the disadvantage of this this program? I think the main one is about the how they have selected the municipalities or the territories part of the program, and still it belongs to the idea of administrative boundaries. So there is no idea back to functional priorities, or like were discussed also from our colleague Miroslav. So institutional metropolitan areas do not always coincide with effective functional areas. So, but I think this is like an institutional problem. So, and it is not easy. You cannot really easily solve, because it depends also like on several responsibilities that you have to allocate from top to down, and then you have to identify which are the authorities, existing one, that are able to take over the responsibility. So, and this is quite problematic. I don't think it is an easy issue to be solved. Why is a good practice? It provides the cities with a clear, well-defined, and stable rule within cohesion policy. So, in the last 14 years, metropolitan cities, the Italian metropolitan cities, they have been involved since the beginning. So they are always informed by, and also not only informed, but also, as I said, part of the process. It addresses the metropolitan dimension, but not the functional dimension. That is quite different from a conceptual perspective. Its governance structure is replicable, but it depends on you have to tailor this program in relation to the country that you want to introduce, in which you want to introduce. It reconnects central level interests with local place-based needs. The interest of the country is to implement or to operationalize the program. The needs of local authorities is to implement projects that are strategically relevant for the municipality or the municipalities, and so this is a good way to make to create the synergy between the 2 different levels. It it constitutes a concrete and effective example of the principle of subsidiarity, co-responsibility. The problems has to be taken or solved where the problems are. So at the local level, not always, but in particular. So what to keep in mind? The city of Florence has played an active role in managing both directly managed and shared EU funds, and we already discussed that. This engagement has required significant innovations in governance structure and in administrative procedures. There is something. The Metronop program has positioned Florence as a leading actor in the development and implementation and coordination of metropolitan projects. Okay, and this is again is quite crucial. And the program has also recognized the strategic role of the city and Florence in implementing and delivering EU cohesion policy at local level. So this recognition, acknowledging the role of cities also is very, very important. You have to treat cities as peer partners in implementing cohesion policy, not only as implementers, again. And there might be some also suggestions for your assignments, but I think you can read and you can take them over if you consider relevant. Yes, it's finished. Thank you. What to do now? We are okay. Also in Italian, okay. Okay.
Question is Slido.
The first one we can skip it because it's the same of.
Okay. In che modo? In which way the models of governance, the Urdico model of governance, help cities to plan housing, social housing, service of general interest, avoiding situation of social
resettlements.
Yes.
Yeah. Urtico itself can provide some suggestions on how cohesion policy can work or should work as a process, while in the city, so in the specific municipality, I think they have to create the right processes on how to translate, once you have the funds, once you have the strategy, into real projects. Okay, so the mandate of Urdico is to work on the governance institutional issue, while not on the sides of the projects, on the strategies, how to make housing a priority, because it was not meant like at the beginning. But of course, as now housing is becoming a priority after maybe too many decades, at the European level, most probably cities will adapt their strategies to somehow answer or to take the housing issue as a priority. Okay. The second one was about persistent proponent.
Suggestion from to facilitate access to EU funds and support municipalities in interest for vulnerable citizen and middle income.
Well, actually, I think the
Very specific.
very specific one. But actually, I understood also. The rationale back. I think that Urdico, as we mentioned several times, to avoid this contradiction between rural and urban, exactly. In the fascia media, in the middle, in between. I think that by advocating or supporting functional approach, it can be like a solution. So instead of working at the city level, you can, and also as was demonstrated by ITI tool and examples, you can enlarge a bit the strategy and include those areas that are in between, though they are not really rural or extremely rural, but they are not considered as cities. So in the periphery of or peri-urban areas, I think that functionality or functional urban approach can work. But still, it depends on how each country the willingness of countries to give this, to recognize this complexity. Not always countries are like. It depends. It is very relative. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Case study of Budapest. This is the last presentation. I will try to be as interesting as possible. And I will also deliver some kind of surprise, because I will give the so-called official presentation about the results of the Urdiko project in Budapest. But after that, I will talk about the real political background of this case in Hungary. And I will also try to raise at the end a kind of moral dilemma of a researcher. How can a researcher remain objective in a case which is politically squeezed? So this was a very important question for us in Budapest. So here are the basic figures. We cannot go into the details now, but first you can see that it was a little bit less money in 21-27, 22 billion compared to 27 billion earlier. So cohesion policy decreased, as I told you. But another important problem is that not all the 22 billion euros arrived to Hungary, because as you may know, there is the rule of law procedure, Article 7 procedure against Hungary. Hungary did not get anything from the recovery fund. So when you were talking about 1.3 billion euros for Florence, I was just thinking that why did Budapest got zero? And not only Budapest, but Hungary. So there are, and also half of the cohesion policy fund was probably blocked. Just to tell you that we have now a new government, that the new government is working very hard to negotiate with the European Commission. They have 2 weeks to go to accept a lot of new laws which would unblock this money, which was blocked because of the previous Orban government. So this is already in itself a kind of problematic case, but let us see how it worked for Budapest. The red shows the administrative region of Budapest. This is 1.7 million people. And the pink shows the functional urban area of Budapest. This would be larger than 3 million people. We considered Budapest because in 2016, earlier Budapest and the surrounding county, which is with the black line, they were considered as one NUTS2 region, as Florence and the province around Florence. But then in 2016, the Hungarian government made a decision to split them. And this is an interesting question in EU policymaking. This is a kind of unwanted externality of the cohesion policy regulation, because you get the money on the basis of GDP per capita, and if your GDP per capita is high, you don't get money. So the region around Budapest, they were arguing if they were not be part of Budapest region, they would get more money. Now the government accepted it, and Budapest is now only within its own boundaries a NUTS2 region, and Pest County, the region around, is a separate NUTS2 category, and they get now more money. This is totally illogical from a geographical and economic perspective, because the surrounding county naturally belongs to the city. This is the functional urban area, this is the housing market, this is the job market. So it is very bad comparing to split these two areas from each other just because of EU money. So this is something which the EU should consider, how they allocate money. As I told you, Hungary operates a highly centralized cohesion policy. ITI has not been applied in Hungary. Budapest has not got any managing authority or intermediate body function. I would just show you, Miroslav was already talking about Warsaw. Warsaw was interesting because the red map of Warsaw is Warsaw City, and then they created Warsaw Metropolis as a NUTS2 region. So they created something like a unit, which is not an administrative unit, as Mirek emphasized, but this is a unit for joint EU programming. In fact, nothing like that happened in Hungary. In the case of Budapest, it could have been done. You can see on this is just a drawing which was not going, which has not been done, that Budapest could have been joined with the surrounding agglomerational area as a NUTS2 region, but this was not what the government, the central government, allowed and considered seriously. Between 2014 and 20, there was a substantial absorption of European money. This was the time when there were no particular political conflicts. The mayor of Budapest was on the side of the Orbán government. They worked together. Obviously, they had some issues to discuss, how much national government support comes for public transport. So they were normal questions to discuss, but there was no political problem. In 2019, in the local elections, Budapest went into opposition, and then a war broke out between the national government and Budapest. So there was, since 21, there was a sharp decline of EU funds to Hungary at all, and then the national government has put the burden on Budapest, trying to give nothing to the city because it is also oppositional. In fact, the administrative capacity with Budapest would not be a problem, but you can imagine if you don't have too many projects, you cannot keep the planners. So there is now a problem that that planners, in the lack of large EU projects, are leaving the municipality. There is also a kind of financial problem of Budapest, and I will show you one example for that. The planning documents of Budapest are okay. There is a green mayor of Budapest who is very active, who is for sustainability, for inclusivity. So he has all the kind of, Budapest has all the kind of plans which we would consider as a up-to-date plan, where you don't only consider if you don't only consider economic development. So they are all the up-to-date plans in Budapest. The question is how much money you can get for these plans. For example, Budapest is part of the 100 zero carbon cities, if you know this EU program. Those cities which want to be without, I mean, who want to totally regenerate their development against CO2 emissions. Budapest has the program how to deal with the housing sector, with the transport sector, but Budapest is a lame duck because the city has no money to do this project. There is a problem with cities and districts. There are 23 districts who have their own mayors, so sometimes they are not totally cooperating with each other, but I will not talk about this in details. When we talk about how Budapest used the money, then it is the municipal companies who were the major planners. In the first two columns, you can see the municipality-owned companies. They use the most money. You can imagine, like the Transport for London is a public body. We have the Budapest Transport Center, and they have planning agencies. They are totally publicly owned, and they make the concrete planning, for example, for metro lines and so on. So so this is a slide which includes that since the 2021 there was a consistent political problem between the central government and Budapest. The calls were not opened for Budapest. Originally, the central government wanted to give zero amount of money to Budapest. Then the Commission intervened, and there was a Budapest complained to the European Commission. Then the European Commission said to the national government, if you give 0 to Budapest, then we will block the total cohesion policy program for you. Then the national government had to agree that something has to go to Budapest. So there were very difficult negotiations going on. As I told you, the recovery and resilience plan is totally blocked for Hungary. There are large challenges on municipality level. Basically, due to the bad financial situation, there are some problems with the EU project management capacity. There is a big problem that Budapest is totally cut from the surrounding functional urban area, but this is not what Budapest itself can solve. Then we have the recommendations for the city. Obviously, the city should do something to have a cross-border cooperation with the surrounding agglomerational area. Warsaw is a good example. Also, Prague is an interesting example. Prague is also cut from the surrounding region administratively, but there is a Prague ITI which includes almost 500 settlements, and at least some planning is going on. And it would be very important to have a metropolitan area coordination body. There are rooms to improve the EU planning on the city level, and in fact, Budapest should fight on the national level for more decentralized management of EU policies.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, sorry, my name is Ollie. I'm from Ireland. You mentioned with the supermajority that they can make changes to the constitution. What changes were made? Maybe I missed that.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, on top of that, with the new government that just got elected, with they're not a supermajority, of course. So are they still they are a supermajority.
There are also. This is the big luck of Hungary, that we can change a system which was totally distorted by supermajority. Now we can redo it with supermajority.
Okay.
It would have been very problematic if the new government has no supermajority. But just to tell you one example, they were 16. The constitution was modified 16 times. So in all cases, they were changes introduced, for example, about projects of extraordinary importance. So if someone had an idea for a project which the local government did not want, then the local government could make, obviously, statements. The local government had a zoning power. The local government made environmental investigations. But if the government said that this project is of extreme importance, then they took out this project from the normal procedure, and they said that the local government cannot say anything. They don't have the right to oppose it. They don't have the right to make environmental investigations, etc. After that, a lot of car battery factories arrived to Hungary. You can imagine the Chinese and South Korean companies. They want to produce car batteries for cars, electric batteries, and this seems to be good. But if you look into the details, this is not really a activity which creates many jobs, but it creates a lot of demand for water, for electricity, and it is environmentally very, very dangerous. If it is not really controlled, then it can, the gases, etc. So there can be very harmful outcomes from such projects. So local governments started to protest, and also the people started to protest against that. And this was one of the aspects where the government has lost the trust of people. Yeah.
Thank you.
If there aren't any questions from Slido, I would ask two questions or comments. First is on the potential, the skill of only my voice. You don't see, you don't have.
Okay.
Potential of the city. We have learned today, but we have already learned by the class, by the former presentation, that they should act as a lobby. Mm? I mean, there are many instruments and institutions available, and they use cities and towns like Urbat, the Urban Agenda, Eurocities Network, and so on. And they are more effective when are they able to use this, to be in this context in a more effective way. The second is the cooperation. We have learned about something about the cooperation. Cooperation win compared to the competition. And in this, the European Territorial Cooperation Program are very important. Interreg. Interreg is able to give an added value and added research to the cities compared to only the RDF funds. The third is integration, and on this the EU stressed a lot for many programming period. It is important to integrate different research. My question is about one aspect that is not very highlighted during today, but I think that in the case of the 8 cities is important. What is the role of the European Investment Bank? I noted in the last picture you shown, the only part maintained is that on the European Investment Bank that is focused particularly on the city on the last period. If you want, I say also the second question because it's difficult. The second question is about the dimension. That means the size of the cities, because we are talking about, especially particularly in the present programming period. In the first generation, urban started with object one, cities, metropolitan city, and so on. Also in the first part of the RDF, the last programming period. Now all the cities are covered, all the towns are covered, but the role, the power, the skills of this city, Europe is a place of cities, a continent of cities, and it seems that it could be a sort of difficulties in to create a real effective networking because of the different objective size and objective and roles. Budapest is the capital, Budapest or Rome or I don't know, is capital city. Milan, Barcelona, Munich are not capital city, are second tier city, but they are a strong power compared to their capital city, and so on. And this is a comment. And in this, the other aspect of dimension is that we have seen, and today we have a confirmation that the administrative border are not enough, are not efficient. We have a very clear case like Paris, that is a very small city, but the metropolitan area is incomparable to the city, or Milano, the same, or many or other cities. And so, what is the right approach to the question of geographical dimension? That means also the operative dimension, no? I mean, a functional urban area is connected to density, a number of population, relationship, service of public, and so on, commuter, and so on. And this is the focus, or should be the focus on the policies, no? To be effective.
So I will try to start with answer and then Erwin can continue. First of all, the case of Budapest shows that the usual European cooperative instruments are not working if there is such a big conflict. So Budapest obviously had Urbex programs, Interreg programs, but they did not mean anything for this kind of problem. Budapest also established the Pact of Free Cities. Benedek Javor was who contributed online. He managed to get a cooperation first from the Visegrad 4 capital cities, and now they have more than 30 cities are part of the Pact of Free Cities. And the mayors are are cooperating, they go to Brussels, they fight together, for example, against Airbnb, etc. But this again had no effect at all on the Hungarian situation. So from outside, it is very difficult to change such a very sharp political situation. You have to change it from inside. But on the other hand, the European Union was very, very important with the Article 7 procedure, with the rule of law procedure, because this was justified, I would say, because Hungary did not really fulfill the basic democratic values. And the blockade of many of a significant part of the European money contributed to a situation which also influenced the elections. So the economic situation became worse and worse, and this contributed to the change. So there should be hard decisions taken if the political conflict is so hard. To come to the EIB question, EIB is a very important institution which usually gives money for important projects, and Budapest got a lot of EIB loans, but in the last years the government did not approve. There is a rule in Hungary, which again was introduced by the government, that if Budapest asks for an EIB loan, it has to have a national government approval, and the national government did not approve it. EIB as a potential and very helpful partner is excluded again because of political arguments. Finally, regarding the large city and small city question, I think here it is very important what happened, I think, for example, in Italy. There was the NOP metro program for the 14 largest cities, but if I know well, in the second phase, it was extended to the medium-sized cities. And I think this is the way to go. Europe is a continent of medium-sized and smaller cities, which are very equally distributed in the territory of Europe. So I would say that this kind of programs, which are based on functional urban area cooperation, should be extended beyond the large cities. And this is, on the one hand, this should be a European will, which means that we should keep cohesion policy, we should keep urban earmarking. The European Commission should make it mandatory to deal with such development issues by each country, otherwise some countries will simply reject it. And secondly, it is a national government issue that the national governments have to be aware that it is not only the largest city, but it is the small cities which can help a lot. In this regard, I call your attention to NUTS 4. You know that NUTS 2 are the administrative regions, NUTS 3 are counties or provinces, NUTS 5 are the local level or LAU, but there is something like NUTS 4, which is the micro-region. And there are policies, for example, there were policies in Hungary in the 2000s, which say that Hungary has 170 NUTS 2, NUTS 4 areas, 170 small and medium-sized cities, which together cover the whole of the country. And if you would give some role in development policy to these micro regions, then you could do a lot of development which otherwise is not possible. For example, you could organize education on micro region level. If you have school in each of the small settlements, then they become segregated. Poor kids, Roma kids go to one school, the better off people go to another school. And on the municipality level, sometimes you only have one school. But if you do it on the micro-region level, then you can create school buses, you can balance the territorial. This is a very much a polycentric issue, and I think this could be a kind of way forward in Europe with this problem.
I will add just few words about the bank rule, because I mean everything was covered by everything was covered by Ivan. So just a few words about the bank rule. Actually, we see that the bank is taking over. I mean, the financing cities for implementing projects, which is fine, but still, those are loans. So cities should. I mean, not should. It is like they have to repay it, while cohesion policy are grants, and it's quite different. Huh? I don't want to see like this shift between from grant to loans. It means otherwise we are going to invest only in those cities that are able to repay the loans. It means that competition will win over cooperation, and cohesion policy does. I mean, if we move in that direction, I mean, I understand the rule if it is a complementary rule, which is fine. But please do not like do this mental shift. Otherwise, cities that are left behind will continue to be left behind, and territories as well. And that's my opinion. I always, yeah. Oh, yes, of course. Also, sure. Also, World Bank has the same approach. Yeah.
No, I don't. Okay, thank you. I think there aren't any other question, or if you have, Piera. Thank you, Piera, and thank you, Silvia. As I can see.
Yeah. Can I say a few words?
Yes, sure. We are waiting for you. Yes.
Yeah. Just want to say thank you, colleagues, participants, students, and I think we have concluded now this learning event. So I'd like to thank everybody there and also the organizers for the discussions and exchanges during this day. A special thank to once again Luisa Pedrazzini for the invitation and the excellent cooperation, and also the commitment to creating this space for dialogue, I would say, between academia and policy practice. I think that today it has been demonstrated the importance of territorial evidence for understanding and implementing the urban dimension of EU cohesion policy. And the discussions also, I think, highlighted the need for cooperation between universities, policymakers, practitioners, students, and European institutions in addressing the challenges that Europe cities and regions face. For the students, I would especially like to address them. I hope that this event has shown that territorial research is not just an academic exercise, but it's also, would say, powerful tool for shaping concrete policies. And I really think that Europe needs professionals capable of working across different disciplines, combining analytical skills with policy understanding, and also translating territorial evidence into practical solutions. And I hope that the event today encourage you to see yourself as future contributors to this important process. Again, I would like to express my gratitude to the speakers, to Ivan, Erblin, Miroslav, and Benedict for sharing their perspectives and also their experience with ESPON. A special thank you also to my colleague Silvia Pieric for her support with the organization of the events, and to the colleagues at Politecnico di Milano, the technician that has helped with the web streaming. And before I close, I would also encourage all participants to continue exploring ESPON and to follow our activities. And please go again to Slido. There is a survey, and there is a very short survey waiting for you. It only takes maximum 2 minutes, but your feedback will be extremely important for us. So thank you once again for your participation.
I join you to the finish to thank you all.
So thank you. Back to you, Luisa,
No, no.
for your final
No,
remarks.
it's only just that I want to confirm to join you to the thanks and particular to Benedict, to Miroslav, to Silvia, and to all the colleagues. Thank you, and I hope to see you another time.